All right, welcome back to the Sear Peak Mindset. I'm your host, Sean Sear. Glad to have you back. Today, we're going to go over some numbers and some stats that I found just in doing a quick search. I was interested in knowing if there was a trend happening over the last 60 days of, say, hot topics and questions people might have in trying to figure things out to help themselves move forward or help their businesses move forward. And funny enough, it came across three interesting things that was happening commonly across the board. And the first one was cognitive load and decision fatigue. So founders are feeling exhausted from constant context switching, and that eventually leads to decision fatigue. And they are two different things. So the context switching is like multitasking. This is where we think we're good at multitasking, where someone says they are. You're not. Your brain focuses really on one thing at a time. So the example I would give here is you sit down with great intentions to work on some type of project for yourself or within your business, and that project can improve your business by bringing in more money, lowering expenses, both making the atmosphere better, whatever the project is, it is. And you sort of get into flow and you're flying and the ideas are just coming and the creative juices are flowing and things are going great, and suddenly your phone beeps. And you make the mistake of taking some time to look at your phone to see what's going on. It could be a simple question. It could be a simple question from one of your employees, a teammate, someone, a friend, family member, and it is something that could have waited. And everyone thinks, oh, that's fine. I'll just distract myself for 30, 40 seconds and then come right back to what it is that I'm doing. But the science has actually shown that if you are in a state of flow and then you break that concentration for a slight distraction, no matter how little it is, it takes you anywhere from 20 to 23 minutes to get back into that state of flow. So let's say you only allocated yourself 2 hours to work on this and to make sure you get the most out of those 2 hours. If you're constantly looking at your phone, answering emails and phone calls, and having people knock on the door and come in whenever they want, you're never going to really achieve that flow state for a long period of time, and you're just shortchanging yourself. So a little consistency in discipline there to not allow those things to happen can help you. The decision fatigue is making a lot of decisions throughout the day, and it's like exercising a muscle, repetition, repetition, repetition. It can build some resilience and strength going forward, but the more you do it, the more tired you get. And what you want to take this information for is try to make key decisions on important things early on before you have to make another dozen simple decisions. Even the easiest ones start to wear on you. And it's just picture a battery that's slowly losing its charge as you make each decision. So when you need to make important decisions, try to have those things when you're fresh and ready to go. The second pattern that was picked up is feeling stuck despite success. And this was about 35% of the conversations out in social media. Entrepreneurs are reaching milestones but feel miserable because their efforts aren't aligned with their values. So, in one of my earlier podcast videos, I talked about having clarity and that when you're setting your goals and your sights to move forward, you want those in alignment with your values because you didn't want to have cognitive dissonance going on. And that's what this turns into. You know, it's back to that story of you put the ladder up against the wrong wall and you put all of your effort in to climb up to look over only to see that's not exactly what you were looking for. So the solution here is really to get back to basics and be clear on what it is that you're looking for and just make sure the decisions you're making fit with who you are and how you feel. And you know, maybe the best way to look at this is if we were to take this and put this in front of your parents or even your grandparents or your kids. You just take someone that's important to you and you value their opinion, and if you were to lay that decision out and they were to see it after, they'd say that's not you. You don't do stuff like that. So just make sure that everything's lining up with who you want to be. And then the third was the hustle culture and isolation cycle. So solopreneurs and early stage founders are carrying the entire load alone, and this leads to dissociation and burnout. So When you first get started, or you're operating a business where it's only you. Now, simple example of this is could be an artist, a musician, a magician, because I've done that as a magician. Unless you build a bigger show and you have assistants, it's usually just you that's doing it. You end up wearing all of the hats, and this could be for any business that you're just starting from scratch, right? So I'm going to recommend two books and a podcast to check out that could make this really simple for you. But what I mean by wearing all of the hats is you're the creator, you're the salesperson, you're the product manager, you take care of inventory, you have to take care of all the bills, you could be the tax specialist, you pay the salary and income out to yourself. You're doing everything, and then you're answering all of the questions that are coming in from clients and customers, whether you're a service or product based business. The first book I would recommend is The E Myth Revisited. And the first time I read this, uh, it was a long time ago, and I kind of got the gist of it. And then I remember going through a period where I was getting stuck and feeling a little bit burnt out. And a friend of mine, whose book I'm going to recommend next, recommended I read The E Myth again. And then I did read it, and I ended up sharing with other people who were starting their businesses. And you could just see light bulbs going on every time they would get through that and come back to me going, oh my goodness, it makes sense. I'm wearing all of these different hats, which are responsibilities and roles, and they figure out they can actually delegate those out to other people and even independent organizations to take care of it for them. And when they do that, you free up time, and then you have to take that time and apply it to what you're really special at and bringing in money to your business and moving it forward. So that's the E Myth Revisited. Another book I would recommend by a friend of mine, Chris Cooper, um, Founder, Farmer, Tinker, Thief. It's a really good book. It actually takes you through the processes and stages of growing through your business. And it mentions that same thing, right? That in the beginning, we're doing everything, and the goal is to stop doing everything and create processes and systems that other people can do in moving that business forward. And then scaling afterwards. But without that first part, if it's all about you, it's never going to scale because without you being there, it'll just fall apart. So those were the three patterns that were recognized, and I did that over a 60-day period for the research. And then I thought, wow, is this a trend or is this something more? So I said, let's try it for 2 years. So they did a 24-month study and researched the same resources and found out that this was common. And then there were 3 or 4 stats that came out that were a little more concerning. So I want to share those with you really quick. Um, so not only were those three patterns prominent moving through that 2 years, um, there was a burnout trend happening as well. So in 2023, the burnout rate was about 44 or 45%. If we fast forward to 2025 until today, it's up over 54%. When they are looking at the entrepreneurs and the founders for anxiety, it went from 37% to over 75%. High stress went from 44% to over 83%. And mental health issues climbed from 72% to 87.7%. So the three patterns that were identified were consistent over the 2 years, and then the mental health and well-being ones were increasing in a bad or negative way. And there's a series of possible answers for this one. One being that maybe we're just actually recognizing and acknowledging these things and seeing them, right? I mean, if we look at science, we used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe until science discovered more, and we found out not really. It was the sun, and then it was the galaxy, and now we know different because we keep discovering more. So maybe there's just a little more recognition as to what's going on, or people are opening up a little bit more about what's happening. But the silver lining I take away from this is, if I use myself as an example, um, I knew about something like PTSD through my brother who had PTSD. I sort of kind of learned about it, and then I ended up getting diagnosed with it, and that opens up a whole other door. And the silver lining I'm trying to share here is you're not the only one. That's the beauty of it. You're not the only one. And the next silver lining is it's something that can be overcome and that you can move forward and that you can progress. One of the things I like to offer is a free assessment. You can do that just by putting in a message below, or you can send me an email to sean.cccinc@gmail.com for now, and I'll send that assessment out to you. You do that, we can get together and chat. And the assessment and any ideas I have from that are free. Coaching is a whole other thing. I like to keep the free part, and I like to do these podcasts to offer some solutions and suggestions for people to move forward. So the solution and suggestion for today, for the third pattern, of course, was the 2 books, and then the podcast it's also with Chris Cooper. It's called Business is Good, and I would recommend watching that one from the oldest and original podcasts through to the most current ones to help you out the most. Now, that being said, I'll stop this podcast here, but I am going to do some future podcasts that deal with each of those patterns individually, how we can overcome them and improve our own stats and get back to loving progression in ourselves and in our businesses. And I hope that this was helpful. If it was, please share this with some other people out there so that they can make some improvements as well. Until I see you next week, keep moving forward with courage.